Well, good morning, everyone, from Mystery Island, Maryland. I'm John O'Loughlin, and this is McDuff Lives. Friday mornings, when I can, I like to have a chat with folks that are my regular subscribers and new folks, if you like. It's your chance to raise some issues in the chat room, which I will. Sometimes I can't monitor the chat. I'm doing interviews and, otherwise don't pay as much attention, but I can when we have these chat sessions. So, welcome to you all. Good morning, Vietnam. Eddie Baker and Corky says, Eek. David is here, and Miss Hunt, good morning. Apple cranberry tart. Not bad, not bad at all. Um, yeah, I just had a late breakfast myself. Orange marmalade was my choice this morning on this beautiful piece of spelt toast, spelt, that we get from our local mom's store. We have a grocery store up in Waldorf. It's about maybe 45 minutes drive, but I go up there once a week. That's why I take Wednesdays off. I have to do my gotta do's. But going shopping there is really a pleasure because the food is really high quality, and they have a bakery that they get fresh bread from every day. And well, anyway, you know what that's like, right? Paddington Bear's favorite. Oh no. Yeah. Oh, I got a new bear. I guess I'll have to introduce him to you on the show next week. He came home with us from Blowing Rock, North Carolina. He's a grizzly bear, but he's a small one. He's not the kind that's going to scare you. He's just actually not even a foot tall. And, he just kind of hitched on with us the way some of these other ones do. These birds. Oh, there he is. I don't know where he's been, but this of course, is Grimsey, the puffin from the island of Grimsey in Iceland, up in inside the Arctic Circle, where we had a wonderful, wonderful visit. I don't know, what, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Too long. Need to get back to Iceland, so we'll put Grimsey up here. Oh, of course, Olivia deserves her place too, but now he's, oh my. See what happens when you get too many of these guys. They all want to be in the front row. There you go. Corky Goss, my friend, so glad to have you with us. And anybody have any issues besides almond butter toast? Well, let's all just eat breakfast and call it a day. Well, I know a lot of people are curious as to when I'm going to be able to share some stuff from this book, and why not go ahead right now? This is probably the most important part of the book. It is the first chapter, and it is called Sullivan versus Cromwell. So, of course, the notorious legal firm is Sullivan and Cromwell. It still is. And well, why would Sullivan and Cromwell fight? Well, this is why. Um, and this is really the answer I've been on this quest for years to figure out how it was that the idea of corporations became kind of this perpetual, eternal financial instrument that could never be uh, corralled or controlled after it got established. And this is how we have these huge corporations now. And one of the answers is, well, William Nelson Cromwell. We figured that out maybe 2 weeks ago, that he was the guy that finally that came up with the legal mechanism of creating what are called holding companies. And as I was talking with Professor Hamamoto last night, the idea of a big brother, the technological surveillance state, combined with the holding company, creates a complete barrier between the controllers and the controlled. And it's so obscure with these corporations hiding behind innumerable corporate veils that one owns the other, owns the other, owns the other. And the change in the law that Cromwell accomplished was to allow corporations to own corporations, thereby making a holding company corporation have its only business is to manage the stock that it owns in the other corporations. And that totally takes the human control connection between the owners and the consumers, the owners and the workers, the owners and the government. It all becomes an obscure field with thousands of fences that you can never get through. That is what's wrong with American capitalism, is this idea of these perpetual corporations. Well, you've heard me speak on that before, and so that's preface to me reading this chapter one, first just 2 pages. Okay, here we go. Sullivan versus Cromwell. This is a quote at the beginning of the chapter. The corporation is the cuckoo nest in the commercial nest. I'm sorry, start over. The corporation is the cuckoo egg in the commercial nest and must be cracked. Algernon Sidney Sullivan. Well, you know what a cuckoo's egg does, right? So the destruction of the nest, or the infiltration of the other bird's family, and then the cuckoo gets all the nourishment, the other babies die off. And it's an interesting metaphor when you think of what these perpetual corporations were able to do to small businesses around the country and the world. William Nelson Cromwell barely noticed the parade, even though his partner, Algernon Sidney Sullivan, led the procession as it passed under their office window at Broad and Wall Streets in New York. It was loud enough, with a red uniformed band oomping enthusiastically. The marching songs echoed through the canyon of four-story buildings in a loud celebration of capitalism, which hundreds in the parade thought would spread its beneficence to them, while those actually making money labored at their desks. The parade passed Broad and Wall, up Broadway to the corner of Exchange Place. Sullivan, as tireless a public speaker as he was a courtroom advocate, mounted the makeshift wooden platform laid over the foundation of the new Consolidated Petroleum and Stock Exchange building, whose bunting and streamers blew in the wind of a chilly September day in 1887. A tall, erect figure with a bald pate and a dignified white mustache, Sullivan had not been able to resist the last-minute invitation to replace U.S. Senator William Evarts at the dedication of this new monument to progress and wealth. After a minister had offered a prayer and the Glee Club had sung America, Sullivan harangued his distinguished audience, which included the mayors of New York and Jersey City, on the great controversy of the day. Drum roll. What do you think the great controversy of the day was? Well, the great controversy of the day was, should corporations be outlawed? Yeah, should corporations be outlawed? Why would they be outlawed? Because of all the reasons that we talk about when we say how bad it is to have these, perpetual financial instruments that have all the rights of a human being, including even beyond the normal limitations of humans in terms of their lifespan. And who was against them and making a big speech to all the bigwigs of New York? Algernon Sidney Sullivan. And so that's why this chapter is called Sullivan versus Cromwell, because Cromwell is the one, the younger partner. Um, Sullivan eventually dies, and Cromwell has by then created the form in which he's going to take over all of these massive businesses, right? In order to control them through holding companies and the hidden hand of, financing, which then, of course, is where the money comes from, is the banks. And that's where the profits go, in many cases, to the stockholders of the banks. But that's what we have to stop if we want to have an honest capitalist society, because these huge corporations are simply, it's not a fair playing field. By no means is it fair for a person to want to go and start a business and think that they're going to have a fair shot at it on this particular playing field, where the huge, and well-financed corporate interests already own almost everything, and any new ideas or new uses of materials, well, you're not going to be able to do it alone, and they're not going to let you succeed. If you do succeed, they're going to find a way to buy you out and to make sure that you don't compete with them. And that's not that's not what American capitalism is supposed to be. And it's a damn shame. Well, that's the introduction to A Law Unto Itself, the untold story of the law firm Sullivan and Cromwell, 100 Years of Creating Power and Wealth, by Nancy Lissigore and Frank Lipsius. And I may read substantial portions of it, or I may just comment about it, but it's a rare book, which I paid, well, real money for, 95 bucks. And that comes out of my Patreon. And guys, as it's nearly the end of the month, I'd like to remind you that we do survive here by virtue of Patreon contributions. I I appreciate everyone that does chip in. This month, I've spent more on books than I've taken in. So, if you are of a mind, sign up for $5 a month. It would help. And well, as I say, I got a lot of reading to do, and that's thanks to being able to make the purchases as I see them coming along. All right, your turn. What's on your mind? Okay, let's see. Can we talk about COP27 doing a new climate 10 commandments on Mount Sinai next month? Sure. Sounds biblical. Let's Google COP27. Did I get the right one here? I'm looking at the webpage for COP27.eg. Is this going on in Egypt? I'll confess that I'm not really up to speed on what's going on with COP27, and but I'm certainly interested in. Let's see, if I got the right website. Sunak says he'll miss climate summit to focus on UK. Um, every fraction of a degree counts, UN says, as 2.8 centigrade warming looms. Well, that's scary. 2.8 degrees centigrade. That's a lot of degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know how many. Some like maybe 8 or 10 degrees. Ooh, scary clowns at the Weather Bureau. Anyway, any comments you want to make about that, I will certainly repeat them. But I'd be starting from scratch. So let's see what else you guys have on your mind. Bjork declare no, I don't know about this. Bjork declare independence. No, I haven't. Sounds like fun. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I know Bjork is a great and uh, world famous artist, but I have to confess I haven't looked into her work particularly. Hello, Brightmore. Nancy Pelosi's husband took a beating at home yesterday from intruder. Nancy was not home. No security for Paul. Huh, well, climate change. Yeah, that's one of my, the things that kind of, it's funny, it distinguishes people. I, I wonder sometimes how it is that some people can see the hoax of climate change, but cannot see the hoax of the jabby jabs. I'm, if you get to the point where you realize that they'll do things of such magnitude and such, horrific, you know, lying and misuse of the public media, but you're still you're still down with the jabby jabs. I don't get that. But and then a lot of the people that are with the jabby jab people, they're also the climate change people. And as many people have pointed out, when the jabby jab thing finally fades off the radar screen, uh, the climate scare is going to be next. All right, David. Oh boy, yeah. COP27 is sponsored by Coca-Cola. Oh boy, 27 is not a good number either when you think of Club 27, and we're talking about Janis Joplin last night, and Jimi Hendrix, and how many others in that terrible, terrible club. Hey Swan, well that's it, and yeah, 432. That's my pitch too. I'm definitely in favor of 432 for A. And as a singer, I just love 432 so much better than 440. And some of them orchestras even go higher than that, like 442, 444. We're talking about the revolutions, waves, peak waves per minute of musical notes, and what is standard and what should be standard. And 432. So that's something that the Schiller folks and I are completely agreement on. And but it's so interesting that they really haven't been able to grasp the seriousness of the jabby jab problem. It's just very interesting. But I support them completely as far as the election is coming. You know, they're the ones that I think have the right answers on the economy, and that's what we really need is to straighten out our economy before um, we're all just going to fall right off the table and be looking for crumbs. But once insurance companies stop insuring waterfront property, well, this is the problem is that the federal government insures the insurance companies, right? And then you also have your unofficial insurance in the form of organized crime that's going to make sure, you know, that those buildings don't tumble down, and because they own them. Think of all those high rises in Florida and how so many of those hurricanes that just come sailing right up to the coast, and then suddenly they take a turn and they go north and they don't knock down all the buildings. Happens over and over again. Well, most people are not ready for my take on weather engineering. It's a whole another big rabbit hole. It's a whole huge amount of opening your mind to things that you really don't want to open your mind to. And I don't try to force it on anybody because I see it happening. It scares me. I don't like, thinking about what they're using up there, the chemicals, the metals, the aluminum, it's falling down and we're breathing it and eating it in our food. And I I don't like to try to be an expert in that field because it's not my field. But I'm at the same time not oblivious and I see it. So just keep an open mind if it seems crazy to you. Everything else seems crazy too, doesn't it? And the fix is in for that. But on your point about waterfront property, meaning until I see the actual water level rise, that's if the globe is getting warmer, sea level's going to rise. Um, if they melt the ice, you've seen ice cubes melt in a glass and then the glass runs over. Well, if they're melting all the ice, pretty soon, the Potomac River outside my house is going to be noticeably higher, regardless of the tides. And it just ain't happening, folks. And that's a really good litmus test, in my opinion. Is your local waterway, is the tide, noticeably higher in your lifetime? It's not. Yeah. I keep trying to find pilots that are going to help me with it, but every time I talk to a pilot, they say, "Oh, it's just hydrocarbons. It's just that's sometimes the humidity and the temperature combine to cause them to linger." And that's sensible. Pilots are smart people, but no, no, there's some engineering going on, and what I've offered in the past is that this hydrocarbon stuff is there to kind of obscure and to give us the false idea of, oh, hey, that's chemtrails. It's probably just an engineered way of letting them linger on the sky for half a day sometimes, right? On the other hand, it doesn't mean that there's not another layer up 50,000 feet of invisible planes, with white markings, UN planes, as James Corbett has suggested, but he doesn't investigate any further. But that's where I would look. I would look above the normal airline traffic. I'd look for the the space between 40,000 and 70,000 for vehicles that we can't see from the ground and are dropping nanoparticles that are too tiny for us to perceive as separate things. But because they have a metallic um, quality, such as aluminum, they can be used to with the help of electromagnetic waves, to create heat zones that will cause storms to appear or disappear, move or stay still, turn left or turn right. And, I've been observing these maps and pictures, for 5, 6 years now. So once you see it, you see it. That's all I can tell you. It's there. And from Route 3, Box 6 in TX. All my X's are in Texas too, brother. Farmers formed associations to contract cloud seeding back in the 50s to 70s. Yes, true. The goal was preventing hail damage to crops, but the numerous playa lakes across the plains were intermittently full. Hmm. Look at the most recent drought map, and you'll see that it almost matches the state of Oklahoma, but most of Texas is not in a drought. And what kind of sense does that make? Unless, the cloud seeding companies got paid in Texas, but they didn't get paid in Oklahoma. But, it's a lot more than cloud seeding at this point. You have to look into the electromagnetic waves, radar, lasers, other satellite transmitters that, what do you think Elon Musk is getting paid to do? He's putting satellites up there you don't know what's in them. And then all the other stuff that we don't know about. He's a great guy. He bought Twitter. Happy, happy day. But no, anybody that's a billionaire, you gotta be suspicious at best. Robert Kovacs, Pentagon admitted they have other means of chemtrailing. Now you don't see as much. It appears magically now. Yep. This is where, I asked one Pacific Redwood what was in in the chemtrails. I guess it's the word to use. A lot of people don't try to use that, but just for the sake of understanding what's in it. And he said nanoparticles of aluminum. Well, that ought to be scary if you accept, him as he's a real professional weatherman. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the sky. He knows how to read, you know, barometric pressure maps and all of those technical things that professional weather people do. And he's been looking at it for years now. So, and I know there's a lot of other people out there, believe me. I don't need any references to, people like, where do what's his name, Wigington or Jim Lee. You know, there's a number of them out there, but for me, I think one person explaining it clearly is the best thing, and that's why I refer people to One Pacific Redwood on YouTube. You see, it's not just cloud seeding. It's the direction of huge creation and direction of huge storm systems, hurricanes, typhoons, um, causing floods, causing droughts, causing sudden movements of storms. Like suddenly they're heading for Hawaii, right? And remember about 2 or 3 years ago, there was two big storms that headed right for the big island of Hawaii. And didn't they zig and zag just at the last second? Yeah. Just imagine how easy it is with satellites to shoot down some electromagnetic energy that's going to heat up a portion of the storm. It's going to cause it to steer this way or that way. It's not that hard to think of. Yeah, and in terms of what they can do in countries that have corrupt governments, or I'm not saying Bulgaria's government is corrupt, but just as a general, they have been in the past, and as a general rule, those places are completely vulnerable to whatever experiments that the intelligence agencies or the military types want to run. No limits, and drop. Aluminum is a poison, as far as I was told. And, does it contribute to Alzheimer's? Well, I'm not sure that anybody's really faced that question seriously. Not a lot of grant money is going to be directed at the person that asked that question, I don't think. Well, Marcia is continuing to do a weekly podcast out of our shows, and their most recent one is, in fact, from the Harley Schlanger interview this past Tuesday. Um, it's really a lot of fun to see what she does. She puts a bed of music in the beginning of the show, and then there's a sound bite from the guest, and another little bit of music, and then the interview, and then the music comes back at the end with a really nice flourish. And she's done audio processing, uh, compression, and that sort of thing to improve the audio, get rid of the noise, and skip the clicks and the ums and the ahs as she gets a chance to, and edit it down to a really listenable 40-45 minute podcast. So all you got to do is go to McDuff Lives, with the exclamation point, podcast on your search engine, and you'll find it right away. We use Buzzsprout to spread it around to all the other services such as Spotify and Google and Amazon, and all the usual suspects of podcast services, which I can't name them all, but younger people definitely are into podcasting and listen as they go about their days. So this is a great new audience for us. Definitely check it out. Talk about it. I personally do appreciate it. Young people, that's what Professor Hamamoto was talking about last night, about how good young people are always going to be searching for the truth. Young people are always going to be using their creativity. They're always going to be trying to solve problems and to get past, the old ways of doing things, which often are inefficient, and many times we find are the results of past corruption that hasn't been cleaned up yet. Speaking of cleaning up the corruption, that's what McDuff's mission is, to arrive after, or to survive after the downfall of the bad Macbeth, you know, to get rid of him, to kill him. McDuff, Kennedy's man to smash the CIA. That's the mission. The mission now is broader. It's the whole deep state that is perverting our economy, our medical system, our education, taking away our future, trying to make it impossible for those children of the future to fulfill their own promise and their own dreams. And we need to fight that. And that's what McDuff's mission is. So, bravo, young people, please don't lose your enthusiasm and don't get caught up in addiction and of any sort. You are too valuable to waste your lives, you know, doing things that are just, of no use to anyone. Whereas, the enthusiasm that comes with and your incredible energy, you guys have energy that I don't have. And while you have it, use it because you're going to have kids one day. And when you do, you're going to want to protect them the best you possibly can from the type of corruption that we talk about every day here on McDuff Lives. Hey, Brightmore. Pressure on Israel's apartheid state coming from the young. They don't see the difference between Israeli settlements in Palestine and Russia's, quote, invasion. Well, that's the media again, isn't it? The the controlled media, that's where the founding fathers, just didn't get it right. There has to be a legitimate source of information. And I don't know how to fashion it. They created this thing called PBS, Public Broadcasting Service, with the idea that it was going to, tell the truth and not be political. You know, how long did that last? Probably not even past the first time that the first broadcast happened. You remember that when what's his name, the Mr. Neighborhood guy, Mr. Rogers, he went to the Senate to pitch his show. You know, we want Congress to fund Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And so they put on a show. You can watch it on YouTube. And so he goes there and he's the witness, and he talked. And this, I can't remember what senator it was this kind of this guy with a dark mustache and kind of looking kind of like grim, like I'm not going to give this guy's BS, And he says, gives him a hard time, And but the pitch is mothers are away from the home during the day. Children don't get that motherly guidance and that motherly sense of belonging and safety and feeling a part of that they used to get from when mothers didn't have to work or didn't choose to work. But now, we have television and the kids are going to be watching television. Don't you want them watching something that provides them with wholesome, moral, and yet a sense of belonging, being part of a neighborhood, and that senator kind of starts to get kind of all gushy inside, and he goes, well, he says, oh, you're gonna get your money. You're gonna get your money, as if it were like this, big moral struggle for the senator. That was a canned deal. It was all just all for the cameras. Because this whole PBS thing has been a psyop operation from the Rockefellers, principally, ever since it was first conceived. But what we really need is a real public information service, and we need real private information services, and we need real reporters that will go out to real scenes like Patrick Lancaster goes to the battles in Donbass. We need information on crises, but also we need information on the real history that has got us into this jam. And it's got to be projected in a way that is easy to get access to, and everyone that wants to know can know the truth. Because without the truth, our democracy doesn't function. At least it functions very badly. So that's one thing that I think the founding fathers did not anticipate properly was the power of the privately owned press where there's no public information service to set it straight. Well, that's my opinion. Well, let me look back here and I see. Well, thank you very much. Feel free to share the work. I'm working here for you, and I want you to take advantage of it. Talk if you find it worthwhile, please pass it on, and let's keep this thing going. Eek eek eek. That's what we say. We are the screaming ospreys protecting the nest. The group of ladies protecting the nest will be back next month, and I'm looking forward to that. Our great web master mistress Catherine Jumping Mouse is busy scheduling for November, and we'll be putting that calendar up on screamingospreys.com. Anytime you want to know what's going on the show, look at screamingospreys.com. There's a calendar down at the bottom of the page. We still have our Screaming Ospreys TV up where you can see a number of my favorite shows from the past. There's like about 8 different channels of content there that you can just take advantage of anytime you want to. And, some links to um, some of our favorite the playlists. So anyway, that's at screamingospreys.com. The John Titor story, though contrived, is prophetic. I'm sorry, I don't know that one. Um, David says Ford Foundation sponsored PBS from day one. Mr. Rogers is Hunter or what? Bo Biden's godfather. Yeah, perfect. Hello, Michael Panzer. I see you in a little while. Glad you're here. Parenting is the whole story. Yeah, I was lucky. I was so lucky. My parents were just completely dedicated to make sure, that we turned out okay and we were able to make a contribution and that they put me through the College of William and Mary, out of state student. It wasn't cheap. My other sisters, they both got private educations in the same manner. After he died, my mother took care of them, and it's remarkable. But I have two wonderful sisters. I'm very proud of them both, and they've done well in their fields. But without my parents, I don't think we would have made it. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Michael, and God bless all parents. And the kids that don't have parents and don't have two parents, it's got to be tough. I was 14. My father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. Mark Twain. Yeah. Isn't it funny about Mark Twain in Hartford, Connecticut, and my dad? I could show you volumes of Mark Twain's books that my father's family had in the house he grew up in. It's a collection. They had all of them in a little collection of red bound books, and I've still got a couple of them around. But the point is that the Bissell family bought Mark Twain's Victorian Gothic house in Hartford, Connecticut, and that's where they lived when my dad was growing up and going to Loomis at the same time that George P. Schultz was growing up and going to Loomis, living in the Mark Twain house with Richard Bissell's family. These amazing connections that just astonish me. But there it is. I mean, what did Mark Twain have to do with the deep state? Who knows? Fantastic, fantastic writer. Um, but there's a lot of fantastic writers out there. I think Riley Wagaman is a fantastic writer. He's my guest as often as I can get him from Eastern Europe. He's in Tbilisi, Georgia, right now, waiting to get his visa to get back to Moscow. And um, really, just one of the most talented wordsmiths that I've run into lately. Um, he goes under Edward Slavsquat, and you can find him on Twitter. And then his real home is on Substack, where he has a subscription place. You can read him for free, but if you can support him, uh, that's that would be great. He's a brilliant mind that has about maybe 10 or 12 years in Eastern Europe and Russia to share a lot of important perspective. All right, Greg, good to hear from you. Yeah. Amen to that, Corky. I don't have any kids. I'm I'm sorry to say that it's just not been possible for me. The different times in my life, um, actually, Corky, that the McDuff was my idea, and George and I kind of together decided to use it. Um, but no, I don't. I'll credit George as much as he deserves, but no, he did not. He did not coin the name. But I agree with you. It's kind of sad, but at the same time, there's kids all over the place, and go adopt one or be a babysitter or a grandparent to some kid that doesn't have grandparents. I've always thought that maybe I could do that as I wind down my work life. But it seems that this is my work now, and I wouldn't have enough time for that even right now because I think what we're doing here is so important, so very important. Yeah, I wish George well. I don't know what happened and all, but things change and it's part of life. So enough said. What did you say there about Twain? Oops. Twain despised roads. Oh, well, that's good to know because that's where I would like to place Twain in my mind as being kind of with the Algernon Sidney Sullivans of the world that see the destructiveness of corporations and the this round table, which really I think using Lord of the Rings as a metaphor it really is effective. That it's one ring to rule them all, and but there's all these other rings out there, and there's rings within rings. That's the round table vision. That the other rings don't know who's in charge of the bigger rings, but they accept it, that this is the system and we're going to live within it. And you take these blood oaths and smelly robes that you're, you know, willing to do what you're told or suffer whatever horrendous death that your superiors may prescribe for you. And that's the ancient Babylonian control system, still existent, still powerful. And that's that's the difference between our children's future as free people and our children's future under the heel of a boot forever, as Aldous Huxley said. Twain, a Masonic apostate. Interesting. I just need to look more into this. More about Twain. Hard to read Huckleberry Finn. I never got through that. Just that language and that the anyway. Enough out of me. We managed to spend an hour together once again, and I'm very grateful to you all. Have a great weekend, and I will see you Monday.